Hi, thanks for joining me. So many times Spirit loves to give messages that are, really deep and intense or very profound, and we find it amazing that we just happen to, read something right when we needed to. But quite often Spirit will play funny buggers with you as well, and I've had many occasions where some really funny stuff has happened. Just a few things I'll share with you today. So I remember this time I used to have a book about spells, and it was a book from the 1800s. So a lot of the spells that were in the book were with ingredients that were quite hard to get in the 1980s and 90s. So, but I used to love reading through them and be fascinated with the way that, especially young girls used to love to do spells. There was one that I think I may have done this when I was a teenager because I really recall it, but it was to get a lemon and cut it in half and to put one half in a pocket and the other half in a pocket of something that you'll wear all day, carry the lemons around with you all day, and then when you retire to go to sleep at night, you put the lemons on. So most people had beds back then that had posts like either four-poster beds or like posts on the end, and you had to put the lemons on the end of the on top of the posts at the end of your bed, and supposedly that night you would dream of your future husband. So there was this spell in the book that I tried when I was in my I was probably about 20 years old, and I was already living in a relationship. I was sort of living with the guy that I ended up marrying. But so we weren't married at the time, but we were living together. And I had a girlfriend over, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and we were bored, and we thought we'd go through this spell book. And there was a spell there that was to tell you who you would marry. So we thought this would be a fun thing to do. And you had to get 9 peas and thread them with a needle and thread onto this thread. So there was 9 peas hanging. So I only had frozen peas in the freezer, so we went and got these 9 peas out of the freezer, and I got a needle and thread, and I threaded them on, and I had tied it up the top, and I had a long piece of thread, and then I had these 9 peas hanging, and you had to hang it over the back door, or the door that was used as the entranceway the most to the house. And whoever came in and stood under the peas would be the person you're going to marry. Now, my girlfriend and I were home alone. My boyfriend at the time, my partner, had gone out, and he was with her partner. So they'd gone out, and we knew that they were going to come back soon. It was kind of like a joke to us. We thought, they're going to come home and he'll walk under the peas and it'll be the guy I'm going to marry. We kind of figured out it was going to work out how we wanted. So we hung the peas up, and they started thawing out. They were there for quite a while, and we were just doing something else. And we heard a car pull up, and next minute this guy comes up to the door. He knocks on the door, and he opened the door, and it was a stock agent. It was like, because we lived on a small property with 5 acres, and my father-in-law had cows in our back paddock, and this stock agent had come to look at the cows, and he was standing under the peas. So he didn't look up because they were up pretty high, and my girlfriend and I were just trying so hard not to laugh, and he could tell. He was going, what are you laughing at? We're like, doesn't matter, we're not going to tell him he's standing under peas and you're supposed to marry me. Anyway, it didn't work out. I didn't end up marrying him. I ended up marrying the guy I was living with. But it was just funny, because I used to love doing spells, and I quite often would do spells for people to help them with money, and they would always get money. Like, as soon as I did this spell, they would get money. Or I still have this ongoing thing where there's one lady, every single time she loses something, she will look for, like, she might have lost it for a year, and she will look everywhere. The moment she sends me an email and says, I've lost this thing, it shows up. It just shows up. It's really, really uncanny that it just shows up like that. Every single time she's contacted me. And that's happened a few times with people. They've lost something, they've looked absolutely everywhere, and they'll send me an email and it shows up. So I also had this time where I had gone out to buy a gift for a friend, and I had bought a necklace. It was kind of like beads, with a matching bracelet. And I walked in my front door, I had them in a bag. I took out the necklace, I put it on my dressing table. I took out the bracelet, put it on my dressing table. I had a gift card, and I was holding the necklace and the bracelet, thinking, what shall I put these in to wrap them? Shall I put them in a little bag, or shall I just find a little piece of gift wrap, tissue paper or something like that? So I put both objects down. I walked into the kitchen. I grabbed scissors, sticky tape, some wrapping paper. I walked back. The bracelet was gone. There was no one else in the house. There was just me at home. I then thought, when the hell did the bracelet go? It was right here. So I looked down behind the dressing. I thought, how would it get behind the dressing table anyway? But I looked there. I looked in the drawers. I looked in the bag that it was in. I know it was sitting there, and it was gone. And it's never, ever showed up. So I ended up just giving her the necklace. I don't know. I feel like time crosses over sometimes, and if there was a time dimension thing and someone's walked in, another energy's walked into my room at that time, and they've found a bracelet, saying, oh, where'd this come from? And it suddenly manifests into a different time zone. I don't know, but that bracelet just totally disappeared. Another time was when my son Rowan and the other kids were at school, and Rowan was about 4, and we were at home, and I was playing with him, and he had one of those people, some of you may remember these. They were like tents that the kids used to play in, and they were made out of plastic tubing, and then you would put this big plastic cover over them. So it was like a square tent that you could set up inside, and like a little fort thing, and the kids could run in and out. And it was all put together with like PVC piping, really thin. So there was black piping, and there was these yellow connectors. So, a corner connector would sort of go, it would have 3. It would have one going that way, one going that way, and one going up. So you would connect in, the pipes in the corner, sort of like putting a tent together, really. Well, we had built the bottom frame, we had built the sides, we had gone around the top, and we were putting on these 2 like triangle pieces to make the roof. And we had the ends up, and the connectors were on the ends, and they were going forward, and same at the other end. So all we needed was the piece of rod that went in between the 2 connectors. So the connectors were sitting like that. Well, we couldn't find the piece of rod. It must have been up in the wardrobe somewhere. So we left the tent sitting there. My son and I went back to where the toy stack was, and he was standing right behind me. And I had to get up on a chair into a higher shelf, and I found this, the rod that we were looking for. It had been left up there by accident. And I pulled the rod down, I handed it to my son, I climbed back down the step, and we turned around and went back to the tent. And those 2 connectors that were that way were now that way. They had magically unpinned themselves off the tubes, spun them around 360 and gone back down again. And like, he was 4, so he was young, but we both looked at each other like, what? How did that happen? Spirit has obviously turned them around. There was only the 2 of us in the house. We were both together the whole time. And we know that they were facing that way because we were just looking for the piece of rod that would just connect between the 2. And they got turned around, like, unbelievable. So many times you can be in alignment. If you are really, really in alignment and you're really sort of letting life flow, you don't need to get warnings, because sort of like if you're in the flow and there was going to be a bad accident and you were going to be heading somewhere and you were going to get caught up in that accident, if you're in alignment, you won't be thinking about the accident, but you'll be thinking, I don't have to rush today. There's no rush to get there. I'll take my time. And then you go on, do something else, and you just move at a pace that you feel comfortable with. And then you end up missing the accident, or you come after it, or you just don't get caught up in it. If you're not in alignment and you're not listening to instinct, that's when your guides will step in and make your keys disappear. Like you're running around everywhere looking for your keys and you can't find them, because they know you're not listening to your instinct. So they step in and will make you late in some way. And they'll do that in a lot of different areas. If you went for a job interview and you're not meant to be there, but you are perfect for that job, but for some reason you're not meant to be there, your resume gets lost, or an email doesn't show up, or there is something else that steps in and disrupts that because you're not meant to be there. And then because you kind of feel like, oh, I'm really upset because I wanted that. But it's more about when you don't get what you want and it doesn't happen, just thank Spirit for thank your higher self and thank Spirit for stepping in and stopping that direction, because there is something there that you're not aware of. There was just something that I wasn't going to see further into the future. I thought that was right for me. But they know better. They know better, and they're just sort of diverting you into another area where you are meant to be. So that's when they say go with the flow. And when I find when I go with the flow that Spirit love to have games with me. They like to hide things. Every single night in the last 4 days, we lock both our front doors when we go to bed at night time. I'm at the front of the house. The rest of the family are at the back of the house. Every single night I hear my front door open, and I get up. No one's gone out. No one's come in, but I hear the front door opening. Like some spirit energy is coming and going at night time. And there's also one that likes to open our laundry door at the moment, which is really, really helpful. If you're carrying a basket full of washing, that's so helpful when they open the door. So I love being in alignment with them all, because I find that they help me constantly. We just work together. It's just like having another set of hands in the house. So I love when they play games with me. It makes me laugh. I mean, this kind of work can get really serious. If day in, day out, I'm going through problems with people, and people have lost relatives and they're grieving, and they need to talk, and there's people with just so many problems in their life, and we're talking about these deep problems and trying to heal. So when Spirit decides that I need a bit of livening up and something funny to happen, they always shine through and make me laugh. So yeah, I just thought I'd share those few stories with you, and I hope you have a lovely day and smile.